For years, a lone voice in the shadows of comedy has been ringing out like a prophet in the wilderness, Katt Williams tirelessly exposing the glittering lie that is Hollywood. Beneath its dazzling lights, he insisted, hid a web of buried truths so explosive that the public was never meant to glimpse them. Yet today, the digital world is erupting with whispers of the unthinkable. The brightest stars on Earth are vanishing into silence, and millions of fans are frantically stitching together clues that feel straight out of a thriller.
Discussing exists in each of the fields.
Right, any field.
Right. Not entertainment exclusively. Politics, religion, science, everywhere, right? Some of this is human nature, right?
Across countless interviews and sold-out stages, he painted a picture far darker than any punchline. The public only ever sees the polished facade while the real machinery of power grinds in secret. Now, those old warnings hit like thunder because the very reckonings he described are materializing before our eyes. Viewers are feverishly unearthing vintage clips where Katt laid bare how certain titans in entertainment shield their own and destroy anyone who dares step out of line. Names like Dave Chappelle hanging heavy in the air.
Dave Chappelle was decapitated in front of us. They called him Pilot Boy because he had 19 pilots in Hollywood and everybody passed on him and said his show wasn't worth it. Then when he made $500 million, they said even though his contract said he should get half of it, they said he made too much for the contract to be valid, so we'll offer you 10% of what you made. You mean he made $500 million and they offered him 50? Yes. And he said, what do you think my fans are gonna say when they find out you offered me 10% of what I made you? And they said, your fans will believe that you're a crazy kid by the time you get home. He got on the flight in LA, and by the time he got to Ohio.
In those raw, electric moments, he wasn't merely joking. He was delivering a coded dispatch from the front lines of control, a system that stretched from Hollywood boardrooms straight into the corridors of government. The internet seized on every syllable at the exact instant another bombshell detonated. The endless enigma of Jeffrey Epstein and the explosive documents still chained to his name. Though he perished behind bars, the official narrative of suicide has never satisfied the skeptics, least of all Epstein's own brother, who still demands answers the world refuses to give.
2 days before he killed himself, allegedly, committed suicide. You know what he did 2 days before he killed himself? Epstein's estate transferred $577 million into a trust he created 2 days before his death, and it was called the 1953 Trust. Why 1953? That's the year he was born. A little weird. 2 days before, kind of weird. Either you are like fully prepared, or it's a little weird. Remember how earlier we were talking about Bill Barr connection with the dad and all this other kind of little weird, Bill Barr, New York Times called him the ultimate cover-up general. New York Times called him that in 1992 when they were going through a complete different thing. Imagine Bill Barr's being called the cover-up general 33 years ago by New York Times. Damn! That kind of a reputation for this long. Bill Barr's role as Attorney General during Epstein is extremely significant. Why? Because some are calling this the ultimate potential intelligence cover-up. His background, past behavior in the context of Epstein's death led to many describing Barr as a CIA fixer or the guardian of the deep state.
But Mark, for you, it's personal. This was your brother, and just so everybody knows, Mark wasn't part of anything that his brother was doing in this regard. He's never been connected to it. There's never been a suggestion. It's not about that. But Mark, you do not believe what the administration, the Trump administration, is putting out about your brother now. Why?
Well, every time they say something or do something to try to quash the fact that he was most likely dead, they just put their foot further down their mouth. I mean, for instance, here's Patel in the congressional hearing. He listed his credentials as a prosecutor and other such things, and he said that it was he said, it's when you see it. That's basically what he said. So the questions that popped into my mind was, first of all, number one, how many suicides has he seen? Number one. Two, is he a forensic pathologist? Does he have a medical degree? Does he have a certificate that he passed the CPR course? Does he have a Boy Scout merit badge for first aid? What is he basing his expertise on? Contrast that to Dr. Roman, who was a city pathologist who did the autopsy. She came out of the autopsy and said she couldn't call it a suicide. because it looked too much like a homicide. Dr. Michael Barden, who was there on my behalf, who witnessed the autopsy, also concurred that it looked more like a homicide. Now, was Katt Patel in the autopsy room? No. Was Katt Patel in the prison when they found Jeffrey? No, I don't think so. And if he was there, that raises even a bigger question. So every time they say something, when Katt Patel came out with that statement, I laughed at how stupid it was. And then they just released this video. This you're going to like. After the death, a few days after the death, Bill Barr, the Attorney General, said he saw that video and he saw that nobody went in or out of the chair, and that convinced him it was a story. And I heard that and I realized how stupid that was, because no one could get to that door, go in, body, leave completely undetected. That's like an asinine concept.
Those court files, investigative reports, and chilling flight logs read like a who's who of the elite, yet vast portions remain locked away, redacted into oblivion. Some estimates claim 70 to 80% of the most damning pages still blacked out. That deliberate veil of secrecy has only supercharged the public's hunger, every fresh trickle of paperwork igniting fresh firestorms of speculation. One survivor, Lisa Phillips, stepped boldly before the cameras and declared with steel in her voice that the complete list must finally see daylight. No billionaire, no politician, no celebrity, no matter how mighty, should ever stand above the law.
Millions of files that haven't been released.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, as you've seen from the files that have been released, it's pretty dark and disturbing, and there's a lot of big names involved. And they have also redacted so many of the people that and things that we should know.
And you know who many of those names are?
A lot of the survivors know who the names are. And some are a surprise to people too as well. And that I've always said it's not just in the United States, it's a global human ring. And there are many powerful people, government officials, financial institutions, universities, modeling industry, entertainment industry. There's so many people that are involved, which is why it's a big mess.
Her words landed like gasoline on an already raging inferno, sending millions scrolling back through time to relive the most suspicious celebrity moments ever captured. One clip in particular detonated across timeline. Tom Hanks at an awards ceremony, his face twisting in a split-second reaction the instant Epstein's name dropped in a joke. That single expression morphed into a viral meme, dissected frame by agonizing frame, turning a casual glance into a global courtroom of suspicion.
That's a show about a man who wants to kill himself because his wife dies of cancer, and it's still more fun than this, okay? Spoiler alert, season 2 is on the way, so in the end, he obviously didn't kill himself, just like Jeffrey Epstein. Shut up! I know he's your friend, but I don't care.
Make no mistake, social media is flooded with unverified rumors swirling like smoke, yet the absence of hard proof has done nothing to quiet the storm. The debate rages hotter still because Hanks has quietly scrubbed several high-profile appearances from his calendar, events packed with interviews and open Q&As suddenly wiped clean. His representatives offer no link to the Epstein firestorm, but in this age of digital eyes, that very silence screams louder than any confession. Another name refuses to leave the trending list. Leonardo DiCaprio, forever trailed by the same cutting punchline about his legendary preference for girlfriends who never seem to cross 25. The internet has roasted the pattern for years. Remember that nearly 3-hour Once Upon a Time in Hollywood premiere where his date supposedly aged out before the credits rolled? Even Prince Andrew memes couldn't resist the jab. Beneath the laughter though, a darker question lingers in the comments. Could the joke be hiding something far more sinister, especially now that old ties to Diddy have resurfaced in the same conversation?
So you're having a party? What song do you kick it off with?
Dougie Fresh and Slick Rick, The Show. You have to try that one.
Now you've gone on the record saying that your white party is up there with the top 3 that you've ever thrown for people. What are the other 2?
I would say when I got my star in Hollywood, I had a party. And this year at Burning Man at an undisclosed location.
If you've had to recall the most lavish, over-the-top, outrageously extravagant decoration on display, what would it be?
One time I had the Declaration of Independence in one of my 4th of July parties. It was a 4th of July white party. And the white party's coming back this year, by the way, for charity.
Yeah, it's great to hear, and I'm sure that's probably not public information yet, but who's the person that's number one on that invitation list?
Leonardo DiCaprio.
And I can get on that list,
Yes,
right?
without a doubt, you are invited.
That is so generous of you. Cheers to that.
See you at the white party, and happy holidays to you and yours.
That connection is precisely why DiCaprio's name reignited like a flare the moment Epstein chatter roared back to life. Then the spotlight swings mercilessly toward another titan. Oprah Winfrey, the woman who once reigned over daytime television like an empress, her empire built on trust poured into millions of homes. Lately, her public presence has dwindled to almost nothing, and online sleuths are linking the hush to something far more explosive. Multiple Epstein survivors speaking of a mysterious broker who allegedly funneled young girls toward the ultra-wealthy and ultra-powerful. In certain corners of the web, that title has been pinned directly on Oprah herself.
Winfrey. That wealthy heifer with the ugly feet. Yeah, her. We got some news about Oprah Winfrey. We got information that's real telling. Oprah Winfrey's private jet went to Epstein Island reportedly 11 times. Yeah, 11 times. Now, why would your airplane be on Epstein Island, Oprah Winfrey? Huh? It didn't have nothing to do with them girls that came up missing at your school out there in Africa, right? Yeah, we ain't forgot about that. All them girls that came up and missing, where the hell they at, Oprah? All that money you got, you ain't found out what happened to them? I got a pretty good idea what happened to them. Just like all the rest of them. End up on them damn islands. Yeah, you and, what's that motherfucker that got arrested and got convicted? That little movie producer, forgot his name, but y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all were best friends. How you become best friends with a pedophile? That's what I'm trying to figure out. I see, it's a reason why you don't have no kids. Is it because you can't have none? Or you don't want none? Or you afraid if you do have one, you might around and give your own kid away and wind up on that island?
An accusation of that magnitude is nuclear, still unproven and fiercely denied, yet its sheer gravity keeps it ricocheting across every platform. Adding fuel to the blaze is a ghost from Oprah's past. Her enthusiastic endorsement years ago of the Brazilian spiritual healer João Teixeira de Freitas, better known as John of God. She spotlighted him to the planet, catapulting the man into global fame and adoration.
Sure would ever happen. One of the most famous spiritual healers in the world rarely talks to anyone on camera. John of God agreed to sit down with me under a mango tree on the grounds of the casa. A group of his patients gathered to watch. John of God speaks only Portuguese, so Heather Cumming helped translate.
Ready, guys? You describe yourself as a spiritual medium. What does that mean, a medium?
Médium, eu sou espiritualista.
As a medium, he's a spiritualist. He believes a great deal in God, and he practices this mission already 55 years.
Born on a farm to a family who rarely had enough to eat, João Teixeira de Freitas was the youngest of 6 children. His father was a tailor. His mother, a housewife who also ran a small hotel to make ends meet. João left school when he was 7 to work in his father's tailor shop. To this day, he cannot read or write. As a boy, João says he realized he was clairvoyant when he predicted a terrible storm that destroyed a neighboring village. This event began his journey as a spiritual medium.
Later, the same healer was convicted of horrific crimes tied to trucking operations and handed a staggering sentence, approaching 400 years behind bars.
If it were all just a show or some form of entertainment, there would be no harm. But we've been investigating this man's practices around the world and have found a sinister history of police investigations, sexual allegations, and secret recordings. It would appear that this man who says he's doing God's work is anything but godly.
Because of that devastating fallout, critics are now demanding whether Oprah's platform should have been more cautious with its blessing. Even wilder online theories claim hidden Epstein documents hint at shadowy threads weaving Epstein, John of God, and Oprah together. Allegations that their methods of control bore such a horrifying similarity for one terrifying reason, that Epstein actually used doctors to control women.
This is a photo taken in Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan townhouse. It seems to show a doctor performing a medical procedure on Mr. Epstein's dining room table. We looked through about 15,000 records from the Epstein files to understand how Jeffrey Epstein cultivated and rewarded a small circle of doctors as a means of control over the women in his orbit. Mr. Epstein dictated when these women got plastic surgery, even when they went to the gynecologist. And he could also take medical care away. In some cases, you also see the doctors help Jeffrey Epstein maintain that control over these women's lives. Here's one really striking example. Jeffrey Epstein is flying back from his island in the Virgin Islands to New York with a young woman who has suffered a really serious injury. He reaches out to somebody named Eva Dubin, former girlfriend of his, and the founder of the Dubin Breast Center at Mount Sinai. And he says, this woman fell off the ATV and needs stitches in her forehead. Can you organize? She responds, okay, Jess Ting, plastic surgeon at Mount Sinai, is standing by. Call me as soon as you land. And then you see the next day from Jeffrey Epstein, Dr. Ting put 35 stitches in her head, laid out on the dining room table. And that brings us back to this photo, which appears to be of Dr. Ting. Dr. Ting declined comment on this photo. When we talked to medical experts, they said, there's no way you do this if you were putting the patient's needs first. If you were doing that, you just take her to the hospital. There's much more equipment, there's many more people, the risk of infection is lower. The only reason you do this is if you were putting somebody else's needs first. We see again and again doctors in these files bending or breaking the rules of their profession, and often they treated Epstein as if he was the real client. They shared patients' private information with Jeffrey Epstein. In this email, one of the women connected to Mr. Epstein expresses to Epstein that she's uncomfortable with this arrangement. And Epstein writes back to say, this is how it is. These doctors know that I'm paying. They want to keep me happy. And these doctors benefited from their relationship with Mr. Epstein. He gave Mount Sinai over $375,000 in donations, including gifts to Dr. Dubin's Breast Cancer Center and $50,000 to Dr. Ting's cancer research. Other doctors got high retainer fees and introductions to his celebrity friends. He even bought a few of them $900 Apple Watches. We reached out to all the doctors listed in our story. Dr. Ting and Dr. Dubin told us that they had never witnessed anything they believed to be criminal conduct by Mr. Epstein. Still, Dr. Ting told us that he deeply regrets his association with him. Mount Sinai Hospital told us that they formed a committee to investigate the hospital's ties to Mr. Epstein, and they would take any appropriate action that resulted.
Next, the internet turns its razor focus to Jay-Z, and the situation caught fire for one unmistakable reason. Reports claim he and Beyonce together lost around 10 million followers across their social media platforms in a shockingly short span. That is no minor dip. 10 million people do not vanish overnight by accident. For many observers, it looked like a deliberate mass exodus, and the link some are drawing to Epstein comes from a specific 2019 FBI crisis intake report that recorded an anonymous woman's frantic tip line call. She alleged that around 1996 she was abducted from her home and later woke up in what she believed to be Epstein's Florida mansion, finding herself in a room with two men filming.
With Jay-Z and his situation, as far as the early Jay-Z, you see him with Aaliyah Young, of course, goes to Dame Dash next. You see him with Foxy Brown. You see the maturation of Beyonce, him getting with Beyonce. You see Rihanna at a young age. Is it more so, and you were young as a singer, is it more so that, you know, when you're in this industry, men are going to most likely talk and date their peers? And it's just that technically all the new rising stars at that time
are babies.
Were just young women, just young kids. Babies.
Being ran around by grown men. Babies. I got offered my first record deal when I was 13 years old. I got offered another one when I was 15. I'm so grateful that my father said no. I ended up not signing a record deal until I was in my early 20s. And as young as that is, looking back now, at least I was a legal adult. Most of these girls They get moved around and touched around very early on. And, you know, and the people that have control of everything are untouchable. So how do you argue with that? How do you argue with that? Imagine a teenage girl in an office alone with someone that says either you're going to sign this contract or you're going to go out the window. Like, even as a joke, that's not cool.
The woman claimed she had been drunk and that her memory of the event was fragmented. She alleged that while Jay-Z was present in the room, Weinstein assaulted her again. The claim comes from an anonymous tip and has never been verified in court. However, it has long been alleged that Jay was in this business, so the internet wasted no time connecting every chilling dot.
The Justice Department released a batch of previously unreleased documents from the Epstein files that include notes from FBI interviews with a woman who says she was assaulted by President Trump in interviews with the FBI. The woman alleged she was assaulted by Mr. Trump in the 1980s and that she was also a victim of Epstein's. The documents were released after multiple news outlets discovered they were missing from the initial mass release of files. For more, we're joined now by our justice correspondent, Ali Rogan. So, Ali, tell us more about what's in these documents.
Jeff, these documents are known as 302 files. They're summaries of 3 interviews the FBI conducted with this accuser, in which she alleges that Epstein brought her to meet Trump sometime between when she was age 13 and 15. She details in very graphic terms Trump alleged against her and how she fought back. She also says she had 2 additional interactions with Trump, but before she expanded on that any further, she asked if she could go on to another subject. During the last interview with the accuser, the FBI asked if she would be comfortable sharing more about her contacts with Trump. She said at the time that she didn't know what the point would be when there was a strong possibility nothing could be done about it, and it's unclear, Jeff, if there was any additional follow-up after that last interview.
Why weren't these documents initially released?
These 3 summaries are actually part of a set of 4, and that other document was released as part of that initial major tranche we saw in late January. That summary was an interview in which the accuser focused on Epstein and didn't mention Trump. These others, of course, mention the Trump allegations. Reporters caught this discrepancy because descriptions of all 4 summaries of the interviews were included in a list that was given to attorneys for Epstein co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell. In a statement released on social media, the Department of Justice said the interviews had been incorrectly deemed duplicative and were subsequently published. The DOJ also says that the unredacted versions of the documents will be available for members of Congress to review, but reporters have noted that even still, there are additional documents that remain missing.
Then there is the broader pattern people are noticing. It is not just the names appearing in files, it is what some celebrities are doing right now. Many observers say it looks like a quiet exit strategy, selling houses, leaving the country, and vanishing from public view. Just when people thought the conversation around the Epstein files could not get any bigger, another major development dropped. A new batch of documents was released by the United States Department of Justice, and inside those records were notes from interviews connected to the Jeffrey Epstein investigation.